You might think it's a terrible night for me. You might think it's going to be a horrible, torturous show for me because of the fact that I whiffed on Indiana again. And it will be those things. But it's also going to be, as I wrote on this piece of paper, an extremely important, groundbreaking show. We have a major announcement on the show tonight. I single-handedly, all by myself, with no help whatsoever from the staff, including producer Jesse, walked into the building today, and I fixed bowl season, and I fixed the playoff. Me. I did all that. It's amazing what one can do when he sets his mind to it. We are jam-packed. We are high atop a frozen downtown Nashville, Tennessee, which pales in comparison to what our great city will look like this weekend. Prayers in advance would be appreciated. Check the forecast if you don't know what I mean. But we have to look back, not forward tonight. We have to look back on what Indiana did to Miami last night. We have to look back on what Indiana did to college football this year, both in victimizing opponents and also in opening the door, at least theoretically, for a lot of coaches and a lot of players and a lot of programs and a lot of fans out there to dream. Dream big. Yeah, why not? We did. We made our own show. We dreamed so big. So if Minnesota wants to win a national championship, Indiana's your Roger Bannister. They ran your sub 4-minute mile yesterday. They proved you too can be a national champ. Or did they? I don't mean to pull out the hose pipe that early. I don't know if I'm on board with what a lot of people are saying today. Then again, who cares what I say about Indiana? I've been wrong about them all year. That's going to be the theme of the show tonight. But there is good news, and it has very little to do with Indiana or Miami. I really think that we reached an inflection point today in the office, and I think we're fixing the playoff, and I think we're fixing bowl season, I think we're fixing the calendar, and I think we're fixing the signing day and the portal. Nothing but fixes here tonight. We're done complaining. We're going to fix it. I was asked what I love and hate about college football. I figure tonight's show is as good a time as any to dive into that. We are giving not one, but two chalice of supremacy, plural of chalice, out on the show tonight because two of you made predictions that I rated 9.5 or bolder on the boldness scale back in the summer. And as of last night, two of those predictions have hit. We will announce that later. So They tell me the season's over. It doesn't feel that way around here. It's year-round college football on the campus of Pate State. They're watching us in Delray Beach, Florida, Indianapolis, Indiana, Elizabethtown, PA, Reno, Nevada. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. That's all we ask. We don't need you to subscribe in terms of sending us money or giving us your email address. I mean, if you want to do that, whatever. I'll just give the money to Bradley and we'll probably farm the email addresses, probably sell them. That's probably what we do. So don't send us your email address, but just subscribe to the channel instead. It's free. It helps us, and we love it when you do it. And we're over 520,000 subs right now. All right, let's dive into the show. I mean, we could go 3 hours if we wanted tonight. We won't, but we could. Indiana won the national championship last night. Now, if you're watching on YouTube right now, I already did the whole game recap thing when I got home to Nashville about 2:30 this morning. So that's already on the channel. Don't watch it now, because the show's on right now, but watch it later. But as for some of the added thoughts that I had throughout the day, I was listening to a lot of people talk. I did a lot of stuff today about Indiana and sort of got what it means for college football. Okay, well, let me tell you where my head's at on all this. I don't know that it's possible to understand the significance of what Curt Cignetti and Indiana did. Surely you can understand the significance as it relates to the 2025 season for Indiana. I would even go a step further. You could, in the moment, understand the significance for the Big Ten as a conference. So all of that I'm on board with. But the whole impact on college football thing, I just don't know if we can define it right now. And to me, I think that way because I don't know what the next decade holds. You know, if we fast forward to 2035 and we look back 10 years ago, Curt Cignetti and Indiana won a national championship. Here's what we'll know then that we don't know now. We'll know if it was the beginning of a trend of programs coming out of the complete and utter wilderness to win national titles, or if it was a total anomaly. And there was a bunch of Georgia and Ohio State and Alabama and LSU before it, and then there's a bunch more of that after it, and there's no other team like Indiana that wins a national title over the next decade. That, to me, will define the significance maybe on the macro scale. Now, on the micro scale, how this affects different programs in different ways, how this affects the fortunes of other coaches in different ways. That's a more extended conversation. It's a more granular conversation, and it's one we can have, probably not worth having tonight. But I think that the big thing I took away from Curt Cignetti this year, you're right, Jesse, that is distracting. Here, I'll move this piece of paper over there. There we go. The one thing that, one of many things actually, that I took away from Curt Cignetti in Indiana this year is if you ever hang around coaches at that level, like if you ever hung around a legit big-time college football coach, forget about that. You hang around big-time high school coaches, college coaches, pro coaches. I don't care if they're active, if they've been fired. I don't care. If you hung around them for a day, they all sound like geniuses when they're talking about football because they're able to talk about it at a much higher level than even hardcore fans are able to talk about it. This is not a slight at Jimbo Fisher at all. I'm using this as an example because I experienced it in the last 24 hours. I was doing the Altcast on ACC Network last night with Taylor Tannenbaum and Eric McLean and Jimbo. I was standing next to Jimbo, and I was listening to him just talk play after play after play and diagnosing play after play after play. And we're on air, and I'm just standing there looking at him, and I'm thinking to myself, this dude's a genius. It's unbelievable. And like Jimbo Fisher was fired at Texas A&M for, not getting the job done to the degree that they wanted. And so like the normal sporting world would look at him and say, oh, look at you, you're a failure because you got fired. Well, headline, most college football coaches get fired. But secondly, just listening to him in a vacuum, he'd make your head spin. Talking about, to him, the most basic fundamental elements of football that would make your head spin. Curt Cignetti could do that to you too. All right, here's what separates, and again, that's not to single out Jimbo Fisher. I used him as an example because I was on air with him last night, and it was an honor, and it was really fun. The difference in what Curt Cignetti did this year versus what a lot of coaches could do is Curt Cignetti could make your head spin when he talks football too. He could talk philosophy, he could talk evaluation, he could talk staff building, he could talk player development, he could talk critical factors that he looks for at the DB position. He could talk all those things, he could talk scheme, and he could make your head spin. But a lot of coaches could do that. The difference is not what you know, the difference is in what you can put inside the head of a player, and then several players. And how much in unison you can make an organization sing through action. And he's a master at doing that, as it turns out. Now, people who have been around him, they're not shocked by that. But most of us haven't observed that because most of us, all due respect, are not following Elon athletics. All due respect, most of us are not following James Madison University athletics, a certain member of the staff notwithstanding. Prez worked for Sig at JMU, by the way. We had an inside track the whole time, and we still went 0-4 picking against him. We, not I, we as a staff. Yes, we. Because we own our failures collectively. So it's the process-oriented approach, and people think it's cliched, and it sounds so boring when he talks about it, and yet that's the entire key to everything they did there. And even when they were doubters, and there were a lot of doubters along the way, even when there were doubters, what I respected the most about that organization is they never talked about it. They never talked about doubters. They never talked about disrespect. Now, they may have harnessed it internally for all I know, and I don't care because it's a moot point because of the next point I'm going to make. They never thrived on it publicly. They were just steady as you go. They could be favored by 3 touchdowns this week, and they carried themselves the same way as if they were a 10-point dog on the road at Oregon. They just sort of stuck to their process. It's crazy how consistent a bunch of veteran guys and a bunch of coaches who have been together for quite a while can perform when they say they're not impacted by external factors, and they're really not impacted by external factors. But the way I know there were doubters is because I was one of them. Yes, friends, I was one of them. And I just need you to bear with me for a second because my voice may crack a little bit. This is not the easiest thing that I do. And we have a policy. I told you the voice was going to crack. This rips my guts out to do. I hate being wrong. I hate it. And I especially hate being wrong over and over again about the same thing, because it makes it look like I'm not learning from history, because I'm not learning from history. Okay, so we make predictions all the time on this show. It's fun, and when you win, you celebrate it. And when you lose, you kind of got to stand in the paint, but when you lose over and over again, and when you fail to learn lessons from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so I got to do it tonight. I got to throw on the clown nose. Again, this is difficult for me. I am my own Sarah McLachlan special tonight. Let's go to the tape. October 11th, Indiana at Oregon. I picked Oregon. Indiana won the game 30-20. It got worse. December 6th, Indiana, Ohio State, Big Ten championship game. I picked Ohio State. Indiana won 13-10. It got worse. January 1st, New Year's Day, New Year, same me. Indiana played Alabama. I picked Alabama. Indiana won by 5 touchdowns. They had backups in, as I recall, in the second half. It got worse. January 19th, 24 hours ago, Indiana played Miami. Indiana outnumbered Miami in their own building. I didn't care. I picked Miami to win. Indiana won 27-21. I picked against them 4 times. I went 0-4 in those games. They went 4-0 in those games, en route to going 16-0. That makes them national champions, and it makes me a broken, confused man with nothing to console him but a cold microphone. Congratulations to Kurt Signetti. Congratulations to Indiana and that entire staff. I have been dunked on as painfully and repeatedly as I've ever been dunked on by anyone this side of 6th grade gym class. And I hate that this is happening to me, but I will learn from it. You guys won, and I'm left here to pick up the pieces. We had to do that 3 times this year. 3 times. It's not a record that I like to set. Okay. Now as I'm emotionally collecting myself. That's really kind of where you miss out if you just listen on podcast. Like 98% of the show translates to podcast, but occasionally when we do Sarah McLachlan Special, doubly especially when I am my own Sarah McLachlan Special, it just pays to go watch the clip. So I'm hesitant to get on board with a lot of what people are saying today about how revolutionary this is for college football. Like, I understand how rare it is. I understand how unexpected it was. Trust me, we just documented how unexpected it was for some of us. However, there is a feeling out there. Maybe a lot of you guys feel this way. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'll be wrong again. But there's a thought out there that now that Indiana kicked down the door, it opens that door for several more cases like Indiana. And I equated that to college football's version of like the Roger Bannister sub 4-minute mile. It's a metaphor I use on the show several times per year because I think it applies. And for those unfamiliar, it used to be thought to be impossible to run a sub 4-minute mile. Then this dude named Roger Bannister runs a sub 4-minute mile. Then a bunch of people ran a sub 4-minute mile. So the age-old question was always, well, was it actually possible the whole time? And a bunch of other people just needed to see it done? And then they realized, oh, we could do that too. Well, is that what's happening in college football? Now that Indiana, of all teams, came out of the wilderness and won a national championship, is it a new day for Rutgers? Is it a new day for UCLA? Is it a new day for Northwestern or Arkansas or whoever? I don't know that that's how this is going to go. That's why I said you kind of need 10 years to look back with the benefit of hindsight and understand how big like a trigger effect, like how big a ripple effect this had in the overall ocean of college football. Here's what I think. I think it was kind of an anomaly. Not in a sense that Indiana appeared for a brief moment and they're going to fade away. Indiana's here to stay. I got no doubt about that. Like Indiana is not a have-not. So it wasn't this have-not that sort of peaked one year and now they'll fade back to relative obscurity. From this point moving forward, Indiana is a have. What Indiana was they were a has-not, because for a long time they were also out-resourced. But then when the Big Ten and the SEC changed the landscapes the way they did, just from a media rights perspective, and then you got the right coach in there, and he got the right players in there, and he kind of showed you what could be done, well, it was like you pulled a giant lever. So they're not going anywhere. Like they're well-resourced, and now they're very well-supported. And in case you weren't in Atlanta or Miami the past few weeks like we were, those people are an army. I hesitate to call them the Red Army, because of historical connotations. But I will call them an army clad in red. I think that works. We're clear on that. HR is good. Pate State HR nodding their head in approval. They don't exist. So, yeah, I don't doubt he's going to have the support. They're going to have the support and all that. What I doubt is that anyone can pull off this perfect confluence of events the way that Curt Cignetti in Indiana just did. If you think about what it took, it's impossible to operate the way this team this year did without the level of experience they had. Like a lot of people I don't know how this works, but they're using it almost as a pejorative, like almost as a slight against Indiana that they were so veteran. That's not a slight, that's a compliment. Well, at least when I say it, it's a compliment. Having said that, how many other teams are going to pull that off? Portal era or not, how many other teams are going to have that many veteran guys who have just executed thousands and thousands and thousands of reps together? They can finish each other's sentences athletically. They can finish each other's sentences mentally. The staff is the same way. There's a lot of credit, by the way, to the head coach for creating an environment where guys, both as player and coach, want to stick around, because those folks have had offers. Trust me, those players in many cases, not out of high school so much, but once they started performing, they had offers, they stuck around. Then there's the execution piece, which is a whole nother thing. I've never, ever, ever in my life, and who knows, maybe someone out there is much older than me and they've seen it in their lifetime, I've never seen a team execute with such precision. I don't know that you'll ever see it from Indiana again. I just don't know that you can replicate it, because honestly, I don't know how you could ever get better than that. It wasn't perfect because they're not robots, I don't think, but it's as close to perfect as real-life humans playing football can get from a precision and execution standpoint, just from a pure fundamental standpoint. And then even with all that, they had to get the right quarterback. They had to get Fernando Mendoza. What if we kept everything else the same about this team, but instead of Mendoza, you just replaced him with an above-average Big Ten quarterback? They're probably out early in the early rounds of the playoffs, probably similar to what they were last year. Really good team, but kind of limited and probably weren't going to be able to punch up against the big boys. I'm not saying that to slight them. It's a huge credit to them. What I'm asking is, if this is theoretically going to be the dam breaker and then a bunch of teams are going to follow, you got to convince me that someone's going to pull off that blueprint. I don't doubt Texas can win, but Texas is loaded. Texas is expected to win. I don't doubt Oregon. Oregon hasn't won a national title yet, and I still fully believe they can. How many candidates do we really have out there that are capable of coming totally out of the wilderness, like Indiana? So that already greatly limits your pool. And then how many of them are going to have that combination or that confluence of events and circumstances sort of just all happen? I don't know that that's going to be this chain reaction that people think, which is what makes it special. It was special to witness, although I was on the wrong side of it. Like, raise your hand if you've been personally victimized by Curt Cignetti recently. Yeah, I know. Control room's got hands up as well. So congratulations to them. Again, the Indiana folks were as nice as any group of people this side of my family reunion have ever been to me. Again. And that's after they already consoled me in Atlanta 2 weeks ago. And then I go and I pick against them again. And still, it was like these sympathetic looks, like they kind of already knew what was coming. And I was going to find out what was coming. And it was just a smile. And it was just, hey, think you're on the wrong side tonight, bud. You can still come eat at our tailgate. Still love the show. Great to meet you. Can you take a picture? I almost wanted some anger. I almost needed it to feel alive. But yeah, that's kind of a joke, because in reality, I love the Indiana folks. I love hanging around them. Tough lesson learned on my part. but I appreciate you guys. Also, got to shout out Quick Trip for fueling the Fall Don't Lie tour every single step of the way. Probably the only sad part of the Fall Don't Lie tour was when we were in Montgomery the other day. We were leaving family reunion, brief stop in Wetumpka, beautiful Wetumpka, home of Wayne from Wetumpka. We pit stopped in Wetumpka, and then on the way back, we're planning on going by Quick Trip. The exit was closed, Jesse. They had the exit closed on us. So I-65 south of Montgomery got to get its act together. I mean, that's on ALDOT. That's not on Quick Trip. So Quick Trip, outside of that one exit, and that's only if you're going south, they are there to fuel your every need. That's not actually a bad idea for a shirt name or a shirt idea. We'll table that. But Quick Trip has fueled us all year. They were on board. I mean, the moment we float concepts, they're just yes. And then they give away a bunch of free gas to our listeners and viewers all year. And cold brew on tap. Some people, for some reason, thought I was making up. And then more so by the day, you guys are pumping your gas and then going into Quick Trip, and you realize it's not a euphemism. There are quite literally taps that you pull, and cold brew of all different flavors and varieties comes out of it. I would call it safely one of the 15 most important inventions in the modern era of the United States of America. That's what I would call it. So I appreciate Quick Trip. We appreciate Quick Trip. Been a fun year. Here's to many more fun years ahead. Now, on the other side of the equation last night was Miami. And by the way, if you're just tuning in, we got a loaded show, so I need to pick up the pace here. Bernard from Wellington, Florida, he said, with Miami making it to the title game and Florida State and Florida treading water, is the stage set for Miami to lock up the Sunshine State for the next decade? I just don't know how to see through the haze on that one, Bernard. Haze meaning college football is so unpredictable right now, and the landscape changes every 5 minutes. I don't know what the next decade looks like. I really don't know what the next 10 months look like, although I think we have kind of a decent grasp on it. Like, I don't really expect much from Florida State this upcoming year. So at least for the next year, I got Florida with a brand new coach. For the next year, yeah, I would safely lean the old Sunshine State scorecard in favor of Miami. But it's like aiming a gun through the fog right now. I have no idea. And that's even if you were to grant me guarantees like Mario's going to be there for another decade, and they're not going to fall off, and they're going to be all in. I still don't know. I don't know, because there are a lot of external factors Miami doesn't have a ton of control over that have to be baked in here. Here's what I do know. As long as that guy's at Miami, Miami's going to be all in. I mean, as long as the current administrative structure exists at Miami, the current attitude will exist at Miami. And as long as that attitude exists, they'll be all in and they'll be a force to be reckoned with. The question from the state of Florida's perspective is, does Florida State rise to the equation and rise to meet that level? And does Florida do the same? Now, currently, one of them is in Miami's conference and the other is not. I have no idea, and this is one of those external factors, I have no idea, Bernard, if that'll always be the case. How do we not know Miami isn't in the Big Ten 5 years from now? How do we not know Florida State hasn't moved conferences? Like, we don't know any of that. So I do know Miami's going to be all in. And I do think it just bears repeating that when we go back a few years ago when Mario first got there, he didn't come there from being an assistant somewhere. He had Oregon humming and could have stayed there indefinitely, and I got no doubt their results would have looked just like Dan Lanning's accomplishing right now. Who knows, maybe better. At least they were going to be a powerhouse there. And he came back home to Miami, and it did not click immediately on the field. They lost to Middle Tennessee State year one. They lost to Duke. But they have improved every year. It went from, Jesse, check me on this, 5 wins to 7 wins to 10 wins to then 10 wins again, but now they went all the way to the national championship game. So I'm just giving you regular season win totals there. That won't stop. Like, it may not be a linear progression every single year. I mean, eventually you can only win so many games. But I think they're going to be in the picture every year. And you can tell how hungry they are. I mean, this Darian Mensah situation, I was wondering the other day, where's Miami going to go at quarterback? They had an answer. Now, it may not be one that the rest of the country likes, and I've got my own issues with the way talent acquisition works right now, but they don't write the rules down there. They're just kind of operating under the current climate, so I don't really fault them. As for the rest of the state, Yeah, I got questions about the future of Florida State. I've got questions about the long-term viability, and I think that's probably reflected in the fan base down there. Like, I like Mike Norvell, so like I hope a bunch of people, including me, are wrong about this, but it just feels for all the world like the only reason they maintained status quo down there was because they couldn't afford not to, and that's always a sucky reason to maintain status quo, because that translates to, well, we really don't expect anything to change, but it just costs a lot of money for us to get out of our current situation. That's kind of 2026 for Florida State. At least that's what's expected by people close to the program. Who knows? Miracles happen in this sport. Case in point last night. Miracles happen in this sport. Maybe FSU's next. Florida, tons of variables there. You got John Summerall in town. I think it's fair to, and realistic, to at least give him some time. So like even if he was a slam dunk grand slam hire, he's going to be the coach that's going to lead Florida back to prominence. Is that going to happen overnight? I wouldn't expect that. Is that going to happen in 2 years? I don't know. Kurt Signetti's kind of changed the expectation scale for everyone, fair or not. But I do know Miami's not going anywhere. So they are where they are. If anything, they may still have a few rungs to climb up the ladder. So in that sense, yeah, right now, sitting where we sit right now, Bernard, I feel great about Miami. I don't feel, tons of optimism whatsoever about Florida at the moment, although I'm all in on John Summerall. I don't feel optimism at all about Florida State. So, yeah, in that sense, I am picking up what you're putting down. I just think things could change in a nanosecond. How do we know what the rules are going to be in the sport 2 years from now? How do we know what the structure of the sport is going to be 2 years from now? There are fundamental changes. They could come from the NCAA. They could come from the conference level. They could come from the playoff. They could come from courts that would totally change the lens through which we view college football. So all that to say, to be continued. I do want to remind you guys, we got a ton to get to. I want to remind you guys, over in the Pate State store right now, patestatematerial.com. So we saw some of these shirts flying off the shelves the other day. But don't worry, unlike in years past, we have plenty of inventory. The university collection is there, and it will not shock anyone to learn that the McLaughlin School of Music shirt was the best seller so far out of the new Pate State University collection. Mainly because I tilted the scales in my favor by overly promoting that shirt over the other shirts, which I also love. And I would just encourage you guys to check it out. Spring's eventually here. I know you guys are loading up on cold weather gear right now, and we got that too. But eventually it's going to be time for the tees. So you need to tee up already, and I highly encourage everyone to be wearing one of these by spring. Let's move on. Transfer portal, just right quick here, just right quick. The transfer portal's closed, yes, but there are a lot of names in the transfer portal, and just because you had to be in it, or did you, the other day, doesn't mean you had to be out of it by the other day. Jordan Seaton, big-time former five-star offensive tackle. He's leaving Colorado. I know that because the video Colorado's staff edited tells me that he's leaving, although I don't know that they knew that's what they were editing. He's been at LSU. He's been visiting down there, 6'5", 330, dwarfs Lane Kiffin, if you haven't seen the pictures. And Lane's not a short dude, but Jordan Seaton's a different kind of cat. He canceled his Oregon visit. So, I mean, if you go and you look at the On3 transfer portal rankings right now, he's the number 9 overall player in those rankings. But in the team rankings, LSU's got a top 6 class. That just means they're number 6. They got several top 100 players. I was talking to a GM the other day, and outside of his own team, one of the schools he had the most to say about was LSU. Said, hey, man, good for them. Rooting against them, obviously, selfishly, but kind of did more than I thought they were going to do, given what they were up against. And I don't think they're done. And I think they'll land Jordan Seaton. In fact, they could land him during the show. Has anything happened, Jesse? No? All right, so far, no. Darian Mensah. A lot of drama going down with the Duke quarterback who is trying to head to Miami. This was the Miami plan. Remember the show the other night? I think Thursday was the last show we did. And I said, boy, good for Miami. They're about to play for a national championship, but I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback next year. Well, they did, or at least they figured it out shortly thereafter. It was probably listening to the show that triggered them into figuring it out. And their plan was to go and basically buy out Darian Mensah from his Duke contract. And then lawyers got involved, and Duke, and this will shock you guys, Duke looked and said, wait a second, we already signed him to a deal. We don't like this. And so now they're trying to enforce it, and they sued him. And this is about where my interest in this stuff ends, because it's a big turnoff for me. We got a question later in the show about what I love and hate about college football right now. I love a lot. I hate this stuff. Hate it. Now, if I were at Miami, given the current structure, I'd probably be trying to do the same thing, but I'm not, so I hate it. But it is what it is. Here's the summary. It'll be a mess, and he'll probably end up at Miami. That's the summary. And a lot of people will be paid a lot of money in the process, because that's really what this entire system is built for, to fatten the pockets of lawyers. And on a related note, congrats, it's working. I like Texas A&M's class a fair amount. Yeah, number 3 class in the On3 portal rankings. Currently, several offensive line pieces. Got to get that straightened out in the spring. Several top 100 players. They added Isaiah Horton, a guy that Alabama went to virtually every time they needed a big play this year. Now, remember, you got 2 new coordinators at Texas A&M, several new faces, and they're not unique to having those issues. I won't call them problems. They're just things. And that's why God invented spring football, as Mimo always said. Top 10 recruiting, too. So they're a top 10 recruiter. They're a top 10 portal destination. You just keep getting further and further into the Mike Elko tenure. And Elko's another one, man. I've had him circled since the day they hired him, really high on him. And to this point, A&M just made the playoff, but they were one and done. So I still think there's a lot of hesitancy to buy into A&M. That's okay. It is a new day at Clemson. Yes, number 16 transfer portal class right now. What? Yes, it's happening. It's all happening. They've added 10 players, mostly on defense, and this is still a baby step, but it's a huge step for Clemson and Dabo Swinney. And now, you know, like for those of us who have been hoping that they would lean just, 10 or 20 degrees this way, fingers crossed that these guys pan out, because it could unlock a whole new world for Dabo and for Clemson. And I almost like picture him hesitantly being dragged into this world. It doesn't matter. If it works, and he'll get the credit for it. So let's just keep an eye. Tom Allen, year 2 as defensive coordinator there, kind of getting more of his hand-picked guys in via the portal. And now I wrap us up with looking at the bottom 10, not in order. This is yet another thing I hate about college football right now. Iowa State lost Matt Campbell and lost 44 players. Not all of them went to Penn State. Most of the core of the team went to Penn State. So 44 out, or 44 in, 54 out. So they lost 54 players. 44 in, but like you understand, it's not a one-for-one exchange. You're losing the nucleus of your team. Most of them are going with Matt Campbell. I hate it. I love it for Penn State, but I hate it in general. Utah, same thing. Lost a ton of guys because a ton of guys are there to play for Kyle Whittingham, and he's gone, so they're gone. Michigan's sitting at 67th right now. North Carolina 65th. I think it's yet another part of what I hate about college football right now is the way that coaching searches happen. If you look at where Penn State is, look at what Indiana just did. And look at what Penn State's doing right now. Whether it should be this way or not, the current concept behind hiring a coach is closely correlated with how much of his roster he can bring with him. So you're not really evaluating head coaches anymore as much as you're evaluating that coach and that coach's current roster, because in the current setup of college football, you just bring them all with him. Don't like it, wish it wasn't that way, but it is that way. Let's move on. Oh, stuffy nose, Jesse. Let me take a sip of water. Nothing cleans out the nose quite like a sip of water from a bottle whose label we will cover because they have not paid for us to uncover their label. 2 things that shocked me on this show. No official drink sponsor anymore, and no apparel sponsor. We're not going out looking for them. But if they come to us, you knock on the door, open door policy. Crazy. Anyway, this may be one of the most important segments that this show has ever produced, because unlike most of the time when we're just talking to hear ourselves talk, this could be a moment that we actually fix something. Cameron from Louisville, Kentucky hit me up. He said, if you could make the college football calendar in any order with any time frame you wanted, what would you do? Cameron, I'm so glad you asked that question. Now, there's a lot of talk about playoff expansion right now, right? All right, so throw up the Brett McMurphy tweet. There's so much wrong with January. There's so much wrong with the college football playoff. Number one, that it exists, but that's a long gone conversation. So the college football playoff's here. It's here to stay. Brett McMurphy, friend of the program, accurately reporting yesterday that the future college football playoff national title games over the next 4 years are set to be held January 25th, January 24th, January 22nd, and January 21st. So if you're out there thinking to yourself, boy, this season dragged on. Boy, the ending of the season was anticlimactic. Why in the world are we playing a national title game this late in January? You're not alone. But what you need to know is the next 4 years, it'll be later than it was this year, which is insane, but it's the way it is right now. So, Cameron, you didn't ask how it is right now. You asked how I would like it to be. Now, I'm going to do something because I just think this is kind of the direction we're going, so I want to get out ahead of it. I don't want the playoff to expand any further. I'm totally happy with 12. I wish we could just sit still for a little while, feel it out, see how it works out. It seems like that's not what's going to happen. It seems like we're going to expand. So what I'm going to do for the sake of my calendar here is I'm just going to assume we go to 16 teams in the playoff, okay? So, not that I want it, but I just expect it, Cameron. Do we agree there? Are we good there? Okay. This is worth a paper pop. I think we had a breakthrough today. I think we figured out how to fix the college football playoff, how to save bowl season, how to move the national championship game to January 1st, how to get the portal and NIL wrapped up, how to get the portal wrapped up, and how to get National Signing Day wrapped up, all by the start of the spring semester. Do you want to hear it? Here's how we need to accomplish it. Step one, I would like to move week 1 to what week 0 currently is. So instead of that last Labor Day weekend, sometimes it's the last weekend in August, first weekend in September. Instead of Labor Day weekend being week 1, we need to move week 1 to when week 0 is, because I need to buy myself some room on the back end. So we need to move the season up 1 week. It's going to be a little hot. I understand that. Saturday prior to Labor Day weekend. That's the weekend that we're going to start, and you'll see why in just a second. Rivalry week, because of that, would be the week before Thanksgiving instead of Thanksgiving week. So your Ohio State Michigans, your Iron Bowls, we're getting all of those done, and your regular season is done the week before Thanksgiving, which leads to a revolutionary Thanksgiving weekend. Because on that Thanksgiving weekend, it's where step 2 comes into play. We're going to have conference championship games. We're just going to have them Thanksgiving weekend instead of the week after Thanksgiving. So last weekend in November, instead of first weekend in December, we're having conference championship games. Your SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, all the G5s. But you know what the conference championship games look like. We have a big problem in this sport right now. Bowl season has been rendered largely irrelevant compared to what it used to be, which is ridiculous. So I'm taking the shock panels, I'm rubbing them together, whatever that gel is in between, putting them on the chest of bowl season. Clear! Boom! Bowl season's back. Here's what I would like to do. I'd like to take 6 bowls. Don't particularly care which ones they are. Let's just call it the Citrus Bowl and the Pop-Tart Bowl, Cheez-It Bowl, etc. And I would like to take 6 bowls, either that Friday after Thanksgiving or that Saturday. You guys can choose, because we got conference championship games to play as well. And I would like to have a 13th game, essentially, for a bunch of teams. I would like to do it basically where take all the teams that are going to play in conference championship games, take them off the board. They're already preoccupied. But this is what it would have looked like this year. My Pop-Tart Bowl is Oregon versus Houston. My Cheez-It Bowl is Ole Miss versus Michigan. I've got A&M, Arizona. I've got Oklahoma, USC. I've got Texas versus Utah. I've got Notre Dame versus Vanderbilt. These are bowl games. They are also college football playoff data points. these games count because the day after, that Saturday, that is Selection Sunday. 9 a.m. that morning, after conference championship and bowl play-in weekend, that is Selection Sunday. I think it would be an amazing weekend. We have taken half a dozen bowls and we have maintained the image of the bowl. We have totally re-engineered the meaning of that bowl. We have totally re-engineered the motivation behind the teams playing in the bowls, and we've made those 6 bowl games sort of semi-play-in games. Not in the true sense of a play-in game, but those games count because the final playoff rankings are after those games happen. So those are final data points, and we got 4 big-time Power 4 conference championship games. We got all the G5 conference title games. We got another 6 games that have huge playoff implications right there. You could play yourself into or out of the playoff in many cases in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Like, whomst amongst us doesn't want that? Step 4, Selection Sunday, 9 a.m. It's an NFL Sunday. We're not scared of the NFL around here, but we're also not going to be stupid and run opposed to them. So we're going to reveal the college football playoff rankings and seedings and the bracket 9 a.m. that Sunday. And then step 5, round 1 happens a week later. Round 1 of the college football playoff on campus is held the first Saturday in December. Round 2 of the college football playoff, held on campus, is held the second Saturday in December. Round 3, finally going to kick it to a neutral site only because I think I have to. I don't want to. That's the third Saturday in December. And then we break for Christmas, and our national championship game is held New Year's Day. And we crown a national champion, and the season's over, and step 6 is immediately after that. I don't even care in which order you do this. You have signing day, and you have your transfer portal window, and wrap that thing up in a couple of weeks, and then spring semester is here, and everyone can go kick their feet up and take a little vacation. Maybe have a junior day. Do whatever you want to do. That is how I wish the calendar looked. Because what we did there is we made everyone play the same amount of games to win it all. Notre Dame is not even immune from this. If Notre Dame wants to win a title, Notre Dame's going to have to play 17 games. Everyone's playing 17 to win it all. You got 2 rounds of on-campus playoff games. The bowl games are enhanced in many different ways, and you totally resurrect the spirit of bowl season because you maximize the relevance of 6 of those bowls, and you totally reconfigure the importance of them. I think that would be an amazing spectacle. The one thing I don't know is how we take care of Army-Navy. That's something that we've got to figure out. The other thing I don't know is that Thanksgiving weekend, when we're having conference championship games, we're also having those 6 big-time sort of quasi-play-in bowl games, is which of them do you have on Friday and which of them do you have on Saturday? We debated this today. Because theoretically, you should be rewarded playing in those conference title games. Do you want to have them Friday? Everyone's playing on short rest, but then they get extended rest leading into the playoff, whereas the other bowl games happen on Saturday. Or do we want to invert that? Still some things to be worked out. I understand. Also, if we play these games on subsequent Saturdays in December, you're going to have to figure it out with the NFL. You're just going to have to. Someone's got to walk in the room that has the stones and the relationships and the know-how to understand, and hey, here's a bold strategy. If you have to, pay the NFL to have the spot. Sometimes that's what it comes down to. But I love this. I think this could work, which is, of course, why I highly doubt that it gets any real traction. But we're trying around here. We're at the very least trying. Let's move on. I got a lot to say about this, as you can tell by the piece of paper in my hand that has so many notes on it. William from Charleston, West Virginia. Clear the throat for this one. Everyone is saying the Big Ten is now the king after it's won its 3rd straight title, but I want Josh Pate to look into his crystal ball and tell me if the same will be true 5 years from now or if the SEC can take back the throne. I would ask you this, William. I would ask you, if Ole Miss would have hung on to beat Miami and Ole Miss won the national title last night, would you feel any different about the overall state of these two conferences? Because I wouldn't. I would still feel like the Big Ten's superior right now. I say that to say I don't put as much stock in like these one-off situations. I think it's a big cumulative situation that exists right now. We've talked about it on the show a lot. So as I sit here right now, 5 years from now, my blind guess is the Big Ten is still superior, only because I don't know what would fundamentally change. Like the talent flow is not going to stop becoming dispersed further around the country. The Big Ten is not going to have less room in their pocketbook with which to operate. So I don't know, like short of the SEC finding a new angle, their old angle used to be, we'll just get all the best players. What is the new angle? If they find one, then absolutely they can reclaim their death grip on the sport. I just don't know that that's realistic. Now, what I do think is more realistic is there's probably not the gap between the Big Ten and the SEC cumulatively that it's made out to be. It's just, I know what that headline says. That headline says 3 different national champs last 3 years. I get all that. I'm saying that probably means there's separation, just not a ton of separation, which means like randomly the SEC could have 3 of the Final 4 teams in the country next year. Well, what does that mean? The whole world changed? Or does it mean a different year produced a different result? That's boring because then you start talking about percentages and statistics and likelihood and all that. Who wants to get bogged down in math? No, we want headlines. We want narratives. We need clicks. But this morning, I was asked this on Get Up, and I went pretty in-depth on it, and some guy hit me on Twitter and said, oh, look at this man. He refuses to say the Big Ten's the best conference of college football right now, to which I replied, the Big Ten's the best conference of college football right now. It's not like it's difficult to say. When I throw a bunch of word salad out there, number one, salad's not the worst thing to be eaten in January. And secondly, it's usually because I think there's a lot more nuance to the equation than let's go look at bowl records and let's look at who won the national title this year. Humbly, that's the way I look at it. So I think the Big Ten has a coaching/staffing edge cumulatively on the SEC right now. I think the SEC probably still has a talent edge or an athletic edge top to bottom, but it's far less than it used to be. I also think in the aggregate of the whole thing, the talent edge is being rendered irrelevant because they used to have such a bigger talent edge that they got lazy in several other practices that the Big Ten was never lazy in. And so that gap is more than made up for because of that. But again, it's so overarching. It's so 50,000 foot. Does the fact that Illinois is better than South Carolina right now impact what Texas could be capable of doing in the playoff next year? No. Just like how good Georgia was in years past didn't adversely impact what Ohio State could do unless they literally met in a game, which they did. So I don't know. I do think that that's not going anywhere for obvious reasons. I do also think the fundamental construct of these conferences could change. I have no reason to believe that we're done with conference expansion. So we just saw this. Like we just saw Oregon and USC added to the Big Ten. We just saw OU and Texas in the last few years added to the SEC. Who knows if that's done or not? I don't know. I do think that it very much reminds me of the old school WCW, WWF. Made this comparison the other day. College football's attitude era, if you will. And what you don't know is if there's just continuous, jockeying back and forth, or if one of them has just permanently claimed the throne and the other's going to be, left to run half-empty arenas. I don't know. I don't expect half-empty buildings in the SEC anytime soon, but you get my point there. Academy Sports and Outdoors littered all throughout the conference footprint of both the Big Ten and the SEC, and they've got what you need for winter sports. They've got what you need for spring sports. They've got what you need if you just randomly want to have a barbecue this Saturday. They've got what you need if you want some big league chew in your back pocket. You feel like going fishing, going kayaking, going biking. Sorry about that. They've got you hooked up. Academy Sports and Outdoors has been a partner of ours for a long time. Academy.com, fully functional if you can't get there in person, and we appreciate them. They've been a really, really fun partner to be in business with for quite a while. Appreciate you guys watching live. Hey, show's not going anywhere. We do the show year-round. I just kind of have to remind you every now and then. Some people think when the season's over, there's something called the, what is it, Jesse? Off-season. Yeah. I've never heard of her. Don't know her around here. So we just keep on going because college football keeps on going. We had a really interesting question earlier today. Paul from Guthrie, Oklahoma said, I know you've been a bit more negative lately about the sport. I know that's just the circumstances, but what do you love about the sport and what do you hate and what do you wish could change? Paul, have I been negative? Sometimes it gets that way. I don't realize it. Well, if I've been negative, let me answer your question by telling you what I love first. I love Saturdays in the fall. More so than anything in sports, I love Saturdays in the fall and everything that entails. Saturdays in the fall are the pinnacle of college football. Not the playoff, not the national championship. Saturdays in the fall. There have probably been many of you who have been feeling a certain type of way watching the playoffs and you can't even explain it. Well, I'll explain it if you're feeling what I think you're feeling. You're watching the college football playoffs and you're excited for it and you know there are big ramifications and big implications on the line. There's a championship on the line and you're watching the games and it's very entertaining, but you're left feeling like you kind of are only 75% fulfilled or 80% fulfilled. And it doesn't make any sense because when you watch NFL playoff games, it is the absolute height and pinnacle of the sport in any given year. And then the wild card round is superseded by the divisional round and then conference championship round. And then you got the Super Bowl and that's where it culminates. And that's the top of the mountain. Everyone gets that. And you're wondering, why don't I feel that way with college football? I still like it. Indiana and Miami was a great game last night. I still like it, but I don't know, just there's a little hollowness to it. The reason you're feeling that way is because college football is different from any other sport, including the NFL. And that's because the regular season is the pinnacle of college football. A lot of people try and fight this. I don't know why. Why would you shy away from 4 months being the pinnacle instead of a few weeks being the pinnacle? It's great if you sort of train yourself on how to look at this. College football has something that no other American sport or sport on this planet has, and that is State College, Pennsylvania, and that's Eugene, Oregon, and that's Champaign, Illinois, and that's Gainesville, Florida, on a Saturday in the fall. That is theater come to life. It's unbelievable. If you've never experienced it, I can't explain it in words. You have to experience it. Your eyes, your smell, all the senses are involved on a Saturday in the fall. Unbelievable. Rivalries. I love rivalries. Rivalries are the pinnacle of this sport to me as well. Saturdays in the fall, rivalries during the season. I'm very, very, very old school in how I think about this stuff. Like I value the outcomes of rivalry games more than I do what you do in the playoff. Now, I'm in the minority on that, and I will grant you that, but I'm just sharing to you my college football worldview. Like, to me, last year's Ohio State National Championship, I look at, and I always remember that you lost the Michigan game. You got the trophy, you got the banner, you deserve it because that's the construct of the sport. But to me, if I'm Ohio State, I am not fulfilled fully there because I don't have the Michigan win to go along with it. Conversely, this year I won the Michigan game. The fact that I didn't go on to beat Miami does not render that any less significant to me. So rivalries are their own season in college football to me. Some of the stuff I hate the way the transfer portal works. I don't like talking about it on the show. You've probably picked up on that. I do talk about it because there is massive interest in it. So, I mean, it would be like a dereliction of duty from me not to cover it because all I try to do is build the show around what you guys tell me you care about. But the portal, if I never had to talk about it again, I'd be totally fine with it. It's not the concept of the portal. It's not the concept that players can move if they want to. It's the frequency with which it happens. It's how many bad actors are involved in it. It's how many kids you can see making terrible, horrifically bad decisions, getting horrifically bad advice, and technically they're adults, And you got a lot of people out there bitter towards the whole thing. So they look at a kid getting hung out to dry and say, good, good. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way because I was once upon a time 20 years old, and I'm pretty sure I would have listened to the adults in the room telling me to do something as well. Because, I was stupid enough to think they had my best interest at heart at 20 years old. Boy, did I learn. So, I hate the whole vibe around the portal right now. I love the root system of college football traditions. I love that. I love when I go to a Michigan game, I see a family tailgating at the exact same patch of land that their parents tailgated at, that their grandparents tailgated at. I love that they're about to walk in the big house, and it's one of the biggest buildings on planet Earth, and they're going to chant some of the same things and enjoy some of the same in-game traditions and game day traditions that their parents enjoyed, that their grandparents enjoyed. I love what the colors maize and blue mean. I love the feeling you get, like when you get off on that exit and you drive down those same streets you've driven down a million times. Sometimes you get there on a Friday, and there's nothing like breathing in a campus on a Friday, right on the eve of a big game on a Saturday. That is the root system of tradition in college football. I love it. I will again repeat. This is the sport for me because there's nothing else like that. I know you guys get after it in the parking lot in Philadelphia before an Eagles game. There's nothing remotely comparable to that and what it's like at a Penn State game. And some of you experience both, so you know good and well what I'm talking about. Let's talk about something else I hate. I hate the drive-by leadership that treats college football like it's just a line item. I hate that. I hate it because that is not what the sport is to me. In some cases, what's best for the sport would make the sport a little bit less money. And once upon a time, we were kind of okay with that. And in certain places, they're still okay with that. I've always been quick to give credit to Notre Dame and Michigan, a few other places where, as an example, they have chosen to forego plastering advertising signage all over their venues. Not because it wouldn't make them money. It would make them money. But they've looked at the relative pristine appearance of their venues, and they've said, that matters to us more than making extra money because we don't need it. We're already loaded. So let's put our foot down there. That kind of attitude doesn't exist nearly enough. You know who else figured that out? The Rose Bowl. When I was growing up in Georgia, everyone would say the Rose Bowl's getting in the way of progress. And it wasn't until years later when I defined sort of my college football worldview and what I loved and didn't like and what I value that I realized, wait a second, my value system is directly in line with the Rose Bowl's. The Rose Bowl has defined their value system, and they are adhering to tradition, and they couldn't care less who has a problem with it. They're going to be New Year's Day, and they're going to have that sunset over the mountains there in the second half, and they're going to have the Rose Parade, and they're going to have all the pageantry and the tradition that's always been associated with that thing, and they're going to take themselves very seriously because it's tradition that deserves to be taken seriously. And if you don't like it, like all due respect, piss off. We'll have the game with you, we'll have the game without you, and we'll be fine. That attitude used to be very prevalent in college football. What I hate is the sort of drive-by leadership, the people who somehow, some way got their hands on the wheel of the decision-making apparatus of college football, and they make decisions like they're not going to be here in 5 years to reap the consequences of it. That I don't like. I don't like that, when we hear proposals about conference realignment, when we hear proposals about playoff expansion, when we hear proposals that would introduce fundamental change to the game, two of the words you never hear out of any quote-unquote leader's mouth is fan and player, because they couldn't care less how it affects fans or players. You ever notice that? If you ever wonder who has the best interest of the sport at heart when they're making decisions, just check how frequently they mention fans and players. You'll find out pretty quick. You'll separate them pretty quick. One more thing I hate, since we're trying to balance this out, bad faith arguments. There are a lot of these out there. Sometimes it comes from people who benefit from the current chaotic landscape of college football. I mean, there's some legal types out there that I couldn't care less about because they make arguments that they know are in bad faith. And it's in the nature of a lawyer to understand they're speaking a language. The language of legalese is a language most of us do not understand. And when you speak a language most people don't understand, the thing you come to realize is you can say pretty much anything you want and you'll confuse everyone else who doesn't speak the language. This is how politicians have thrived for a long time, but this is how legal types have thrived in an open environment like this right now for a long time. So if it's in your best interest, if it's in your best financial interest especially, for the chaos to continue, frankly, I don't really care what you have to say about what's best for college football, because you and I probably don't agree on that. But then on the other side, we probably got a lot of administrative types over there clapping. Good for you. Get after them. Buddy, you're just as complicit on the flip side of the coin of the bad faith arguments, because you and your lack of foresight created the climate that the chaos could exist in. And then you make a lot of bad faith arguments like, well, we can't afford to pay players anything. Well, how'd that work out? And now it's we can't afford to make them employees. Well, can you not afford it, or can you not afford it? Those are two different things. I'm not even taking a stance on that necessarily. I'm just saying there are a lot of bad faith arguments. So those are some things I love and hate about college football. Next up, how about this? Fresh off the presses, right as the confetti rained down last night in Hard Rock Stadium, Richard from Marquette, Michigan, hit us up. He said, hey, I saw FanDuel dropped the early 2026 college football playoff odds. Did anything stand out to you? Yes, I was looking at this on the flight home last night. Several things stood out to me. Firstly, with all this talk about the SEC drought, the odds are reflecting that now. So it's one thing for the SEC to not finish in the top 3 or top 4 or whatever. But for a long time, even if that was the end of the story, if you rewind to the beginning of the story, the SEC littered the top of the odds board. There is no SEC team in the top 3 of the odds to win next year's national championship. It's Ohio State, Notre Dame, Indiana, and then Texas is there, Georgia, LSU, A&M. So there's still 4 of them in the top 10. It used to be like 6 or 7 of them in the top 10 and several of them in the top 4. And that's in the odds. So, yeah, that stands out a little bit. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just saying it stands out. I think Notre Dame and Texas, by far, out of the teams listed at the very top, those are the teams that will shoulder the highest level of expectation. Notre Dame's got the second best odds to win it all. Extremely workable schedule. Texas has got the 4th best odds to win it all. And they got Arch, and they just loaded up on a portal class. Plus, Texas always recruits well. And with the way that the season ended with them not even making the playoff, there's a lot of pressure on Steve Sarkisian, which he obviously understands. He got it the day he took the job. They especially understood it with this portal haul. LSU may be a little bit too low. So LSU's got plus 1,400 odds. That is good for 7th best in the country. Sam Leavitt, if he's fully healthy, and he gets paired up with Lane Kiffin, and he gets paired up with that offensive staff, and then you mesh in the portal class that they're bringing in, and it's not even done being constructed yet. Lane Kiffin has proven in the past he and that staff do not need an incredibly long runway. Like, they are very used to putting together a team in a little bit different manner than his forefathers have, in the coaching world at least. So I think LSU may be a little bit too low. If you look at where Oregon is, Oregon's at 5th, which is not low. Alabama's not even on the slider. They're at 11. I think Oregon and Alabama are probably a touch lower than they otherwise would have been because of the way their season ended. And there's a really bad taste in people's mouths, especially with Bama. I think probably more so than Oregon. But I think with both of them, I'm going to enter the Keelan Russell era at quarterback with Alabama. I am continuing the Dante Moore era at Oregon. I would slightly think that they may be undervalued. I think USC is well worth taking a risk on at 13th right now at plus 3,500 or 3,300. Yeah, 3,500 odds. I already put a little coin or two down on USC. Someone get that to Lincoln Riley. We're not doubting them over here. Everybody else may be, but we're not. You just got to figure out a way not to regress on defense. They lost Danton Lynn to Penn State. Still looking to backfill his spot. But good recruiting class coming in. But they just got a good team coming back. I mean, USC is going to be legitimate in the playoff picture next year. Firmly believe that. Penn State is 19th, tied for 19th. They've got plus 6,000 odds. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get out ahead of it because you're going to hear this a lot. Could Penn State be the next Indiana? Well, I'm going to ask you to stop that kindly. But I will say, very workable schedule next year. We got Matt Campbell. We got our boy up there. He's bringing over a large chunk of his former roster that was at Iowa State, and that includes experience at the quarterback position in Rocco Becht. Again, I want to say for a second time, it's a very workable schedule. So you got the roster continuity there. Still looking maybe to make, I don't know, one final move in the portal, one or two final moves in the portal. 19th best odds to win the national title, Penn State. Those are a few things that I looked at. You can go to FanDuel right now. All of that is available at FanDuel. They have 3 win totals at FanDuel right now, Jesse. It is Virginia Tech, right? Was it Penn State? LSU. It's Virginia Tech, LSU. And out of nowhere, like out of the rafters, we got to hit Mike about this. There is a third team with an over-under season win total. Would anyone like to guess who it is? There is no context clue. Like you would never in a million years guess that Arkansas is randomly the third. Yeah, there you go. 4.5, by the way. So welcome to Fayetteville, Ryan Silverfield. But that's not what I want to talk to you about. The NFL playoffs still ongoing. And no one covers the NFL like me. This has been well established in the past few weeks. No one covers the NFL like me. I was on Caleb Williams before anyone was, Jesse. He doesn't play this weekend, consequently. But yeah, I was on him before anyone was. Anyway, you've got all customers, every single one of you, getting profit boost in the conference championship round coming up. So looking forward to watching that and looking forward to exciting new markets opening there. Because, I mean, as spring ball comes around, we get many more over-under win totals, games of the year, Heisman odds. We get a lot of that. Big moment to end the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I take a sip of water for this. This is a monumental moment. 2 of you are about to have your lives changed forever. I don't think I'm overstating it one bit. Okay. We do bold predictions on this show, a lot of them in the spring and summer. I make some predictions, but I open up the Pate State mailbag and I take tons of predictions from you guys, and we do like 30 of those segments in the spring and summer, and I put a boldness rating on every one of your predictions. And the rule around here has always been, if you make a prediction that I rate 9.5 or higher on the boldness scale, and it hits, you take home a chalice of supremacy. In fact, take camera 1, Bradley. There are 2 chalice of supremacy back here on our set. It's hard to see because they're made of glass, or are they made of crystal? I don't know. But there are 2 of them right there. Ironic, because we have to give 2 of them away tonight. And I'm going to get to it in just a second. But some other bold predictions that came true this year. Coach Jakes from Cherry Valley, New York. The SEC will not win the national championship. That's an example of a prediction that we did not think was that bold. We put a 7.5 on that one. And as it turns out, the SEC was... Bradley, why do we have to show this? Oh, no, that's not my predictions. That's how it actually went. Yeah, I have forbidden Bradley from actually showing my predictions, mainly because Florida was in them in the preseason. They were tough times for me. But, I'm reformed now. I put the clown nose on earlier tonight, and we've learned. The next one was about Penn State. Now, remember, Brandon hit us up from Orlando. He said Penn State under 8.5 wins. Penn State was top 5 preseason. Penn State, this was the year. Don't think about them now. Think about them in July. This was the year that they were going to make the run. And Brandon's sitting there saying, not only are they not going to make the run, they're going to crash and burn under 8.5 wins. And I made that an 8.75. I'm surprised I didn't make it more bold. Well, Penn State went 7-6. James Franklin got fired, and man, he hit. He hit with room to spare. Could have made it 7.5. What about the one about the ACC? So we had one that was the ACC runner-up will not make the playoff. That was Jeru, possibly a soft J there, in Greer, South Carolina. The ACC runner-up will not make the playoffs. I put an 8.75 on that one. Now, in fairness, the ACC's tiebreaker rules were all jacked up this year. So Miami ended up making the playoff, and they didn't even play in the conference championship game. It was this whole stupid thing. So, yeah, who was it, Jesse? It was Virginia and Duke, and neither one of them made the playoff. Great job, ACC. So, made a very unnecessary mess of things. Rumor on the street is they will rectify their tiebreaker rule before next year. We'll see. Next up, now this one came close. This one is from Josh in Savannah. A lot of jokes could be made. No joke will be made. But what Josh did predict is Brian Kelly is done at LSU before Thanksgiving. LSU was a top 10 team, everybody. And then LSU went, and Josh couldn't have known this, but LSU went and beat Clemson on the road in week 1. So then it really looked like they were off to the races. And this man called Brian Kelly being fired before Thanksgiving. And Brian Kelly got fired before Thanksgiving. And I put a 9.25 on this. It just missed being chalice worthy. That was very close. If he asked me a different day, I may have made it a 9.5 because I was right on the ledge on that one. Okay, 2 of you have secured Chali of Supremacy. Chali is the plural of chalice around these parts. Let's go to the tape. First one. College football with Sam from Pinckney, Michigan. Curt Cignetti takes the Indiana Hoosiers back to the playoff, except this time he wins at least one game, advancing to the quarterfinals or better. And I made that a 9.5 because truthfully, the schedule was getting tougher. I, very notably, was a doubter of Indiana this year. Also, I didn't know that they were just going to magically recreate and exceed the dynamic that they had a year before. How was I to know? Apparently everyone else did but me. College football with Sam. I put a 9.5 on that prediction. Chalice of Supremacy secured. We will get your shipping address and information. And that's not all. We had one more. Cam, Sunrise, Florida. Cam said a team will go 16-0 this year en route to a national championship. And wouldn't you know it, Curt Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers, 16-0, national champs. I rated this a 9.5 on the boldness scale. And I may have picked them against them 4 times, but I went 0-4, and they went 16-0, and they won a national title. So, Cam, Curt Cignetti got a whole trophy, and they're going to get rings and everything. You're going to get a Chalice of Supremacy. So, in the end, who was the real winner here? Because they give out trophies every single year. We rarely give out Chalice of Supremacy. Great show. We'll have another show Thursday. Look, I'm not going to be the one to call it early. I highly suspect we won't have a show Sunday because, of the whole 1 to 2 foot of snow predicted for Nashville. So in the meantime, I know we can be here Thursday. So let's just make good use of what time we have together over the next week. Nothing is promised. Appreciate you guys so much. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The football season is ended, but our season has not ended. We're not going anywhere, so we'll still be here for you. Director Bradley, producer Jesse, I'm Josh Pate. Take care. Have a great rest of your evening, and God bless.